There's something slightly tragic about creating your dream dressing room and then sealing it off with a dog gate. I love my girls, but 4 fluffy chihuahuas and an open archway are not exactly compatible with an all-black wardrobe. I've been slowly working on this vintage dressing room, one project leading to another, and before I knew it, it kind of turned into its own little series, so it only feels right to bring it to a point of completion. And that starts with this. A slightly outrageous, very gold, very extra antique room divider I found on a trip. I'm turning it into a door, making it beautiful on both sides, and finally giving this room the separation it not only needs, but one that also makes a statement. And while we're here, we might as well bring everything together with some thrifted treasures and a little bit more beautiful trim. I toyed with several ideas for how to turn this antique room divider into a set of doors, and rather than taking you through every twist and turn, here is the short version. My original plan was not to mount it on the wall at all. I simply couldn't do that without removing part of the wardrobe and reinstalling it later, which I was very reluctant to do. So instead, I became rather determined to make the divider freestanding. I created custom feet for it and spent some time trying to make the idea work. And to be fair, I don't think it was a bad concept in general, but with my particular layout and the weight of the piece, it simply wasn't working. We are going to be scratching this idea of it being freestanding because it is fine for me to pass through carefully, but I just called my husband to test it, and literally one of these panels fell over immediately. Luckily we caught it in time, so nothing broke. So that only means one thing. We're gonna mount this thing on the wall, and for that I will need to take off that bit of wardrobe. So, you know, sometimes you have ideas in your head, sometimes real life doesn't work that way, and it's okay to accept defeat and pivot. I'm just a little bit afraid I won't be able to put this IKEA wardrobe back together, but if we cannot, that might just give me a bit more motivation to build my own wardrobe from scratch, who knows. So, after a little experimentation and a rather predictable battle of wills with myself, I accepted that the wall-mounted option I'd been avoiding all along was in fact the right one. So we are going to mount the doors on the wall, and in order to do that I needed something to mount the doors on to accommodate for the bump out that the skirting board has on the bottom. So I got some wood, I got some trim. It's a gorgeous afternoon, so let's get these measured, cut and painted whilst enjoying the birdsong and wisteria in bloom. So I put a bit of tape on my drill bit so that I know the depth that I need for my wall plug. Let's get drilling. I made sure that the drill bit made a tiny hole that we are now going to use as a guide. This whole thing is turning out to be a bit of a puzzle, because in order for the door to sway the way I need it to sway, I cannot mount it here. I need to mount it on the side of my post. And I can't really do that because this is essentially flush with the skirting, so there is not enough room for the door to function. So I got another piece to bump it out just enough. In the perfect world, I'd probably get a new piece of wood that is thick enough. Prices of wood these days. One of these pieces is about a tenner, so I'm just trying to make it work. Doors are very tricky things. After all the frustration this project had thrown at me so far, I found myself craving a somewhat quick and satisfying win. So, rather than continue battling with the doors for another day, I decided to embark on a creative side quest. Compared to the rest of the room, this storage ottoman looked positively naked. Everything else was dripping with trims and embellishments, while this poor thing had somehow escaped my attention. So I set about correcting that, adding a pale gold fringe and gimp braid around the base, followed by a colorful rope trim along the edge of the lid, all to match the soft furnishings we've worked on in the last video. Let's fix something that's been bothering me about those lovely new curtains. For some reason, they refuse to properly kiss the floor and are somehow shorter than their own lining. Luckily, it's an easy fix, and for a job like this, there's absolutely no reason to take the curtains down, when the sewing room can come to the curtains. We're adding a little bullion fringe to give them some much needed length and a bit more drama. Perfect. And with that done, our door situation was ready to continue. I couldn't help but notice that beneath some of the paint chips and scratches, traces of gold leaf were peeking through on the carved details. At some point in its history, these carvings had been gilded, and I felt compelled to bring that finish back. Besides, the flat gold paint was looking a little one-dimensional anyway. Here I'm using imitation gold leaf, which makes this entire project far more affordable, along with my favorite gilding paste. The process itself is wonderfully simple. Apply the paste to the areas you want to gild, wait for it to become tacky, lay down your gold leaf and gently burnish it into place with a brush. I'm using brushes of varying densities, from very soft to quite firm, because I don't want a perfectly fresh gilded finish. I want it to look slightly aged and distressed, as though the gold has always been there. I've used imitation gold leaf on many projects around the house over the years, and I can confirm that it does not tarnish and is a fantastic alternative to the real thing. The only drawback is that it isn't quite as brilliantly reflective as genuine gold. Still, it delivers plenty of wow factor. It's also an incredibly satisfying process, although you should be prepared to find tiny gold flecks around your home for the foreseeable future. Because of circumstances you are about to learn later in the video, I will be using some specialty hinges to mount these bad boys on the wall, therefore I do not need the original hinge recesses. However, I do not want to fill them, sand them and permanently make them disappear, because what if one day I want this to be a room divider again? So I had to come up with a bit of a creative solution. I've cut out some pieces of cardstock exactly to size and depth to fill the voids of the old hinges. I'm gonna glue them with some good old-fashioned PVA. I'm putting just a little bit of glue on, just enough to hold it in place. In case I ever need to remove it, it's easy enough to do so. To finish this edge and hide our little cheeky recess fillings, I'm going to use simple gold washi tape. Now, this piece has a lot of distress from the lives it lived before it got into my grubby little hands, and I want to emphasize that. Even though we gave it its gilding back, it's looking a bit too shiny and new, and also there are a lot of places where the paint is chipping off, plaster is showing, but the piece overall looks a bit flat because it has been simply painted this one flat gold color color at some point. I want to emphasize the distress and also simultaneously disguise some of the more unsightly signs of age. And to do that, we're gonna be using my favorite product ever for any kind of antique, vibey, dark DIY. If you want to distress anything, antique in glaze is fantastic. You can use tinted waxes. However, if you want to paint over those, then you need to go through the whole process of removing the wax, and that might be a bit of a pain. This is mineral based, so it is way easier to just paint over it in the future, if that's what you feel like doing. I've used it in countless projects around my house. I used it on the walls, I used it within furniture, on picture frames, on all kinds of moldings, on wallpaper with texture. This stuff is truly fantastic. I adore it. I have it in the black and the brown, and we're gonna be mixing it together. And also a little goes a really long way. For creating distressed and natural looking textures, it is best to choose a rounded barrel-shaped brush. I have a variety of sizes here. Smaller is good to really get into those crevices, and larger one is obviously better for larger surfaces. I've got my little palette over here. I'm gonna be using mostly brown for this because I don't want anything too high contrast. And of course we need some tissue to remove the excess. Now that the surface is prepped, let's work on beautifying the backs of these doors. I want to begin with adding a couple plaster moldings. I have these left from the ceiling project in this room, and I think they work absolutely perfectly with the shape of the door. So I'm glad I've been holding on to these all this time. To attach them, I'm going to be using a little bit of No More Nails glue. Any strong adhesive will do, really. Going to use a little artist spatula to spread the glue around. I'm trying to make sure not to go too close to the edges because I do not want any glue spilling out. I'm pressing very gently because these plaster moldings tend to be quite fragile. I'm squeezing just enough for the glue to catch. Gorgeous! Once the glue had cured, it was time for more antiquing glaze. I concentrated on the worn areas and imperfections, distressing them even more and creating interest across an otherwise rather plain surface. But we're not done yet. While the decorative side of this project was nothing but enjoyable, the practical side of turning an antique room divider into a functioning set of doors proved to be an entirely different story. This project fought me every step of the way. The culprit? These doors are, for a lack of better word, bananas. Look closely. They are perfectly level, and yet the gap changes dramatically from one section to another. The problem was simple. Doors are supposed to be straight. Mine, however, were decidedly not. A standard hinge expects a consistent gap between the door and its frame, but these panels bowed and curved just enough to make that impossible. I found the solution. A cranked flush hinge, typically used for cabinet doors. Its large mounting plate allowed me to position each hinge slightly differently, compensating for the waviness of the panels while keeping the doors straight and level. And just like that, after weeks of trial, error, and a small mentee, the banana doors were finally in place and functioning. A delicate little brass hook to keep the doors closed, and I was finally able to move on to the finishing touches. Remember that trim we cut at the beginning of the video? I nailed it to the mounting post, filled the holes and touched up the paint. I also added decorative brass screw caps to disguise the hardware. Alright, we switched to phone for this part of the video because we are going on a thrift hunt. I have found a new place that is about an hour's drive away from me, and from what I've seen on their socials, I'm about to empty their store. I'm mainly on a hunt for things for my dressing room. However, if I see anything that's cool and I want it, I'll grab it, because that's the nature of thrifting. You never know what you're gonna find. Hopefully we'll find things for the dressing room and not just random things. So yeah, we'll see. Let's go. I'm so excited. This place is insane. It's always good to take a second look, but I got so much. Can't wait to show. Let's go through the things I've thrifted. I was in a very excited state because as I went there, I anticipated to find lots of things because I have seen the TikToks that the company posted, and a lot of things that I saw I did in fact buy. It's probably the biggest thrift haul I have ever had. If you are in the UK and anywhere near Stansted Airport, I highly recommend you visit A&D House Clearance Emporium. Tell them I sent you, but also leave some things for your girl, please. Did I find lots of things for the dressing room? No. Did I find lots of things overall? Yes. So that was subtle foreshadowing there in the car. Enough blabbering, let's get to it. What an insane find. Solid wood, beautiful carved corbels. Obsessed. Cool and heavy plaster piece of art with 3 ladies and a cupid. I thought this could be cute in the dressing room perhaps, because I am going for a bit of a boudoir vibe. I mean, how could I not? It's a huge horn. A pair of these beautiful oil decanters. I thrifted one very similar ages ago and my husband absolutely loved it, but unfortunately it broke. So the fact that I found a big one and a baby one, he's gonna be thrilled. Never go wrong with a beautiful little corbel shelf. One simply cannot have too many beautiful corbels, right? Got a pair of these lovely urns, vases. I thought they were very beautiful because they are sort of a pewter color with some copper detailing. I quite literally never pass a beautiful tassel when I see one. Can't get enough of these things. This is a shell with all these pearls in it. Isn't it just stunning? I love me a good shell. Oh, this is so cute. Isn't it just a tiny little baby oil lamp? It's so adorable. A lovely brass candlestick, because there can never be too many. I always grab them whenever I see them. I have been seeing these old-timey irons everywhere for so long, and I finally decided that I need some in my sewing room, and I found two. Aren't they so cute? And I think they will make perfect paperweight or fabric weights or self-defense tools in case anyone decides to break in. Multi-purpose. I also found this piece. I'm not entirely sure what the original purpose of this was, but I thought it can make a really cool stand for like a big book or maybe even a picture. Another gorgeous candlestick. Prices in this shop are a little bit higher than your normal thrift store because they definitely know their stuff. It is still considerably more affordable than going to an actual antique store, and there are lots of antiques. And well, since I got some old-timey irons, I really needed a little iron stand. I actually will probably use it as a plant stand or something like this, but I think it's really pretty. I have found lots of really cool decorative plates. I'm thinking about doing a plate feature in my kitchen. We'll see what my husband thinks, but I'm sure he'll love it. I have found two Wedgwood King Arthur themed decorative plates. So this one is Arthur draws the sword and this one is the Excalibur. My husband and I are big fans of King Arthur lore. We literally have Excalibur hanging in our dining room. So these two decorative plates are based on Russian fairy tales that I've been told as a child and the cartoons about the fairy tales that I watched. So it was really cool and weird to find it in a thrift store in England. They will mix with the King Arthur's lore quite nicely. Scarf clip. I love wearing them in my collar like this. They are also great in blazer pockets. Try them, they're really versatile. I always really enjoyed people's collections of old Victorian photographs of people and always felt a little bit apprehensive about just collecting photographs of random people that I have no idea who they are, but on the other hand, who cares? So I have actually found one Victorian and one Edwardian photograph. This lovely gentleman dated 1875 and his name was George Charles Holmes. I think he looks really dapper and I love that the photograph is like a playing card. Really cool. Ellis Vellon photographers. Another photograph from 1910 and it is of the wedding of Thomas and Alice Johnson. I absolutely love the ladies' Gibson girl hair and the outfits are stunning. If you see any type of little stand or pedestal like this, grab it. These things do wonders when you're styling shelves, creating different height and also different texture. Really helps make your styling rich and interesting. And here I got another beautiful mother of pearl shell. My husband and I stayed at a very cool place and there they used these shells as soap dishes, which I thought is quite genius. I found this wooden pear trinket box. It's a bit whimsical and I like my decor that way. Next we got this lovely carved wooden tray. You see the vision, right? Okay, we are down to the last few things and as you can see I have barely found anything for the dressing room. I did find a few things, so I wouldn't call it a complete dressing room thrifting fail. I am a huge sucker for a good tray. I just think whatever you put in a tray automatically looks chic. Even if it's literally your keys and a book and some napkins, put them in a tray. It will look way nicer. Plus this can double up as wall art as well. And these two are those Italian style trays and I really love the colors on both of these. And I have also found two ornate mirrors, and if you have been watching my shorts or following me elsewhere, you definitely know where these are going. Last but not least, I found this amazing print of the Clint's The Kiss. I hope you enjoyed this thrift adventure and haul. Back to the project. Wouldn't it would be nice if the mounting post had finials on them. I remembered I have been saving wooden curtain pole finials for years and realized that if I could cut one in half, it would be absolutely perfect. There was just one small problem. It's round, and as I'm rather attached to all 10 of my fingers, I first had to build a little contraption to hold the finial securely while I cut it in half. Here's how the contraption is going to work. There is this hole right here, and this should pop right in there. And as you can see, this is so tight in here, it doesn't rattle. There is that little drill hole in there, and I've put a screw here, so I'm going to find that hole we just did, and that's how we're gonna make sure this thing is in fact in the middle. I've temporarily screwed that in, and now I'm gonna screw through each of those. Okay, moment of truth. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. So now I need to flip this round and cut the other side. The rest I can probably just finish up with a handsaw. This is looking promising. All my fingers are in place, except I did nick myself with the handsaw a tiny bit, but that's okay. One half is pretty much perfect, but this one has a couple irregularities. We're going to fix that with a good old hand planer, just like that. It's time for my favorite part of every project, and it's decorating and adding finishing touches. We are currently in the dressing room and the door wall is behind me, and above this mirror here I have a blank space that is really asking for a little gallery wall. I have gathered a few pieces that I think would look good here, so let's map it and figure out the layout. I'm going to put a bit of masking tape on the wall to create a little guide where the gallery wall needs to end, because obviously there is no point putting anything behind the mirror. With the frames and layout decided, it was time to fill them. This Lida and the Swan calendar cutout actually came with one of the thrifted frames. I secured it to a piece of black cardstock with a little tape. I can hardly believe it was so long ago now, but I used to perform burlesque. It's such a lovely memory to keep close. Continuing the burlesque theme, I framed this signed Dita Von Teese photograph from her Nocturnelle show I saw earlier this year. Next, I added a little Raben buff in gold leaf to the plaster plaque we thrifted together. I also gave this wireless wall light a complete makeover, painting it gold and embellishing the rather plain lampshade with some bold trimmings. This was turning into a very girly gallery wall, perfect for the vintage boudoir feel I was going for. I mounted the lamp onto the wardrobe and hung a couple final pieces around it. I've always loved when the girlies display their accessories as art, so I decided to do the same with a few of my little handbags, hanging them from a handful of brass nails. You didn't think that I would leave these panels looking crusty and musty like this, did you? I came up with a simple yet effective solution. First, I cut some floor underlay to size and made a tracing paper template that allowed me to align the wallpaper pattern perfectly. I added a couple of registration marks to the template and transferred them onto the wallpaper. Then I simply found the center point of each panel, lined up my markings, and voila! Perfectly matched wallpaper inserts every time. Using a generous amount of PVA glue and a large brush, I adhered each panel in place before enlisting the help of my newly acquired antique irons. Not only do they make excellent paperweights, but they also did a wonderful job of smoothing out the surface and banishing any air bubbles. Very handy indeed. After trimming away the excess wallpaper with a sharp blade, the finished inserts fit snugly in place on their own. Nevertheless, I added a few little masking tape tabs in the corners for extra security. Now that's much better. We can call this room finished for now. Although the IKEA wardrobe is definitely on borrowed time, I couldn't be happier with how everything came together. I can't believe how beautifully those doors turned out. What do you think? Thank you so much for watching.